Welcome to Automating and Controlling Spend Management in NetSuite. I'm Mike Cano, CEO of PyanGo. Every business is tightening its belt these days. They're looking for ways to reduce costs, to more tightly control their spending, and there's good reason for that. 62% of businesses have experienced lower revenues because of the economic fallout of the pandemic. Many of you are experiencing lower revenues, lower profits, and even cash flow issues. Cash flow insolvency is a real risk to many businesses these days, and frankly, there's no telling when customer demand will rebound. So against this backdrop, it makes perfect sense that 66% of businesses expect to reduce their spending. But that's going to be easier said than done for many of you. Fact is that managing spending is really hard. Now, you've got to be asking yourself, if spend management is so important to a business success, why is it that businesses are so darn bad at it? Well, like most things in finance, we can blame the manual processes that most of us rely on for managing and spending our budget control. Well, and businesses have spent big bucks in state-of-the-art ERP systems. Many of us still lean heavily on spreadsheets. Yes, those relics from the 1980s for a lot of our budget to actual type reporting. Some of you manage spending in a completely manual fashion with lots and lots of manual data entries. Others of you are operating an honor system. You know, when the onus is on the purchasers to ensure that they don't overrun a budget line item. Making matters worse, many businesses must manage large capital projects, amateurize them throughout the year, and manage complicated encumbrance and commitment accounting. If this sounds like a recipe for disaster, you're right. In this kind of environment, there's no way to enforce budget checking. Decision makers can't always be sure where things stand against the budget. Reconciling reports is laborious and error-prone, and all of that keying and all of that paper shuffling is downright expensive, and it delays getting information into your ERP, which is the reason you put it in there in the first place. Worst of all, there's simply no way to stop out of budget or rogue spending. In other words, one of the biggest reasons that managing spending is so hard for many of us is that we don't have strong budget control. And this is creating big problems for businesses at a time when we can least afford it. Today, many businesses have limited visibility into the procurement pipeline. It's really hard for businesses to reconcile their reports. We have lots of missed expenditure forecasts, inaccurate employee expense reporting, and for some of you, you have some big challenges meeting big regulatory requirements. But don't throw in the towel just yet. The good news is that automated budgetary control can help you do something about all of this. And frankly, budget control is essential when it comes to financial planning and control, and having a solution improves spend management in three big ways. First, it automatically checks budget availability against prior vendor obligations. Second, it provides visibility into potential actuals in the procurement pipeline. And third, it delivers complete control and visibility across your business, whether that spending is occurring across town or across the globe. But don't take my word for any of this. Let's hear from a fast-growing financial technology services firm that uses PyanGo's budgetary control solution with NetSuite, and it helps them avoid or eliminate budget overruns. I want you to meet Arturo, product owner at Clip, and Miriam, senior business partner at Clip. Welcome to the event.
Hi, thank you.
Hello.
What were the challenges that Clip faced in managing your spending?
It would be basically a lack of control of what we were spending was our main concern. We weren't seeing where we have some holes or issues. The spending was a little bit under control, but if you would see like the particular lines, they would be off. We also didn't have a real-time way to react to certain shifts or movement in the market. So we weren't being that agile, which is some of our core values here at Clip. We would need to go and review every single line of the budget. Also, our cash flow was not that controlled as it is now.
Why is automated budgetary control important to a fast-growing firm like Clip?
So I think that after 2020, the budget control is more necessary than ever, not only for Clip, but for every company. We need to be able to look at our projections and steer the company towards acquiring those goals, not only in a very agile way, but also taking very, very fast decisions with very limited information. It is only with systems in place that all of us in finance can spend more time analyzing where to have sensible cuts, but also to be able to move with the market and lock in every projection we have. When you try to steer a whole company, not only in a geography, but in many geographies, towards acquiring those financial KPIs, it is very, very important that we know where to have those cuts, not only go and cut like the whole thing. So I think it is really, really important.
What was the tipping point when you realized you needed a better way to handle your spending?
Well, I think the tipping point was where we didn't know where we standed in our forecasting. So I think that would be the tipping point. And also because we were growing so fast, it's kind of hard to keep track of your spending. When you grow so fast, you think you have, like an open wallet. We need to have something in place in the system.
How to evaluate your budgetary control solution?
Well, after looking for the solutions, PyanGo is native to NetSuite, and this is one of our main business requests, that it was easy to deploy and it was native to the NetSuite, and this wasn't achieved by the other solutions.
Why was native integration with NetSuite important in your decision making?
Because the other solutions were standalone solutions, and this might impact with the areas, and they will need a training for other tools, and this will take longer than implementing something that is native to the ERP we have.
And what other features were key in deciding to go ahead with PyanGo?
I think the budgetary check is one of the main features that the persons in the P&L team value more for choosing PyanGo.
What benefits did Clip achieve by deploying an automated budgetary control solution?
I think one of the main benefits is that we can learn about budget performance and understand how the day-to-day operation versus our budget. This allows us to have more accuracy in future budgets, as well as controlling the current numbers. For us, PyanGo is a very useful tool because it has helped us steer the finance process in a very, very efficient way. We are actually know where our budget stands. We know when we have more requisitions than budget, and we are able to stop them from the root instead of knowing that we have an invoice and we have to pay it. Now it's a little bit of more assertive way of operating the budget.
What lessons learned can you share with our audience?
I think that the most valuable lessons we have acquired is to have at least a rough idea of how the processes are today in their companies. You will need to map not only for internal control, but also it will tell you where you need to be flexible and where you can't. And this will help you trying to look for a solution, because there are some things that a solution can do, and that would be a must for your company. Because once you implement a system and the very, very cool stuff has gone, you are on your own. I think that this could really relieve some of the additional stress of having a new system working in the company. Another thing I would say is that you also need to be very aware of how your budget process versus actual is. You can do a budget, but if it doesn't speak with the day-to-day way of work, you will have kind of rough periods. So I would say map, and then test your mappings with the system, and be very transparent and trustworthy with the people that are implementing the tool, so you can capture as much as you can of your own way of work.
Thank you, Miriam and Arturo. Let's now take a look at how automated budgetary control works in NetSuite. Okay, what we're looking at right now, and I'm just going to jump right into the NetSuite part of the demo here, is what we call a budget ledger. So this is similar to the NetSuite general ledger, which of course is going to track all of your financial impacts. But what we're doing is tracking all of your budget impacts. And so we're seeing here are separate budget line items. In this case, we're oriented it around a project and a particular GL account and a department, the development department. And we've established actually
three different budget amounts, kind of a best case, normal case, or tracking case, and then a worst case scenario of what we might have for a particular budget. And so we can establish budget line items for a variety of dimensions. In this case, we're doing projects or entities within NetSuite, accounts and departments, but we can also add in locations or any other kind of custom segments in the system. Next, what we're tracking in our budget control solution is more than the standard budget to actual against true expenses or GL impacting expenses. We are looking at committed amounts, which are unapproved purchase orders or purchase requisitions. We're also looking at obligated. So these are approved purchase orders that are being sent to vendors officially on order. And so in this case, we have $500 that are obligated. And then finally, we have an invoice amount. That would be, in a sense, your true actual, because these are your vendor bills or journal entries that are posting against general ledger. And so we track at a more granular level than, say, the standard NetSuite budget to actual report. From there, we can compare these amounts against our budget amount and calculate the remaining amount, which is a pessimistic view of your budget because it includes that soft commitments, the purchase requisitions, where if I was to reject those, I would actually have a higher available to commit. That's the 7,100 number that you see on the right-hand side. So that excludes that particular committed amount. So I can view the data in a variety of different ways. I could compare it against my worst case budget scenario, my best case, etc., and then figure out where am I at from a reporting perspective and how close am I to going over budget. So this is the raw data that we're tracking. Let's jump into a purchase order that is impacting that particular budget line item. And this is a standard purchase order within NetSuite. I'll go ahead and edit the transaction. And so if you're familiar with procurement in NetSuite, this should look very familiar. We'll go down here, and I'm going to increase the quantity, let's say to a 6, but I accidentally put in a couple of extra zeros in there. And then when I press OK, this is my real-time budget check. So again, this is happening and looking up against that data. What is the remaining amount? So that's that 6,635 that's remaining, and it tells the user the specific account, department, project combination that is involved in this particular budget check. Right now, I've set this up in a warning mode. So what I've done is I've marked the transaction as being over budget. That can be used in NetSuite workflow to route that to your FP&A team or the budget owner, whoever would be in charge of this particular budget, and then they can either reject or approve the budget. So this might be beyond, say, a supervisor approval. We can now do additional routing based upon the budget control data. Alternatively, I can set up that message that popped up to be in more of a hard stop control mode, so that the user is not able to save the purchase order with this increased amount. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fix my amount so that I'm going to bring it back under budget. So now you'll see that I'll be able to move forward. And the other thing I'll do is I'll mark the transaction as approved. Normally, this would go through NetSuite workflow, but for the sake of time, I will just mark it as approved. Then I can go back and refresh my budget ledger and see the impact. So again, all of this is happening real time. My committed amount has gone down. I'm now obligated to 950. And from there, I can drill down and see a full audit trail of all of the transactions that have impacted this particular budget line item. You can see a full history of this particular purchase order. I've kind of gone back and forth a few times. I've got other vendor bills, so I get this complete history. And from there, I can use NetSuite's analytics. So I'm going to jump over here to a workbook that I created based upon all that budget activity and show you transaction by transaction, what are my impacts to the budget in a nice pivot table format. And so, of course, I can move these elements around. I can hide columns if I only care about expenses instead of obligations or encumbrances. I can add or remove that information. So this is one of the great features in NetSuite reporting that has come out in the last year or so that we can take advantage because we are on the platform. Of course, I can also export that data to Excel and look at it that way in addition. Other types of reporting, I can do a more traditional budget to actual report showing each of my general ledger accounts and my percent remaining. So nice little bar chart there indicating what percentage is potentially remaining for each account level. And I can add in additional dimensions or filters as needed for this that'll show up on my homepage. I can also use some KPIs here to identify which budgets are approaching different thresholds, such as 80, 90%. And this will tell me that I might need to do a budget transfer soon, or I'm going to end up going over budget, or I might need to throttle back spending in that particular department or account. I can also slice the data by department or location, whatever segmentation that you're currently using in NetSuite, we can support that. And then finally, these can show up on a key performance indicator page as well. So that's one of the benefits of being on the NetSuite platform, is we can take advantage of all the reporting capabilities built into NetSuite. So that wraps up my demonstration for budget control.
We're now going to enter the Q&A portion of our event today. Mike, talk a little bit about how hard it is to integrate PyanGo with NetSuite.
Actually, from the platform perspective, and PyanGo is considered a Suite Cloud Developer Network partner or alliance member. The platform itself is fantastic to build applications on top of. And so we were able to access the existing transactions, such as purchase orders or vendor bills or vouchers, build additional scripting that we need to plug into that platform, and then be able to segregate our data from the NetSuite, but it's still part of the overall database. And so that's where you can get that highly granular detail on the budget ledger that I showed earlier.
Miriam, one of our attendees is wondering what reporting tools your senior management likes using in the PyanGo budgetary control solution.
Right now, we are actually developing the reporting portion of PyanGo. Mike is helping us trying to understand how to create more reports and have them. So I would say that right now we have everything in Excel, but we are moving very fast towards having it in NetSuite.
Mike, respond to that question. What types of reports do senior managers usually find most beneficial from the PyanGo budgetary control solution?
Of course, the classic budget to actual report. Everyone needs to see that. And of course, you can get that out of NetSuite, and that's more of a reactive process. So then the next step is with our budget to actual is we do include that encumbrance or committed data that comes from non-posting GL. So that's important. But then to be able to slice it and say, well, what's my budget spend by department, by location? In a sense, what we end up doing is creating a little mini data warehouse inside of NetSuite so that you can look at your budget data from a variety of different angles.
Miriam, one of our attendees is wondering how your frontline users use PyanGo on a daily basis.
The people in our procurement department use it the most because they help us with any over budget solution. They go into our reports that we have and they are watching out for it. If they're entering a requisition, NetSuite will automatically go and check for the budget and say, for this line, for this item in NetSuite, we don't have budget. So they will know that they would have to come to us and tell us why are we having the over budget.
I think that's a compelling benefit. And Mike, a follow-up question to you. It seems to me that a hole in many budgetary control approaches is that you don't get that control or visibility from the point of requisition. This is really powerful stuff, isn't it?
Yes, from the beginning point of your transaction process, that's where you want to catch an over budget scenario.
So if you want to stop budget overruns in their tracks, you need to have that integration, no?
Correct.
And that's all the questions we've received, and that will be our final word. If you've thought of another question, or if you'd like to ask for more information from any of our panelists, I encourage you to reach out to them using the information now displayed on your screen. If you're interested in scheduling a one-on-one demonstration of PyanGo's automated budgetary control solution for you and for your team, I encourage you to reach out to Mike directly. And with that, this is Mark Brousseau on behalf of PyanGo. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to speak with you again soon.